Hello, everybody. Good morning, good evening, and good afternoon to each and every one of you. My heart goes out to you and pray that everybody is doing really well today. My name is Wendy Morgan. I am your host today in the personal development and training. And today we have a special guest, Don Lachance. Am I saying that correct, Don? Don Lachance?
Close enough. It's Don Lachance, but that's my French accent.
I like that, Don Lachance, which is to be very specific here. So Don is a really good friend of mine. You've probably seen him on a couple patching podcasts, and he is an expert. Well, he probably won't say he's an expert, but generally I feel he's an expert when it comes to the field of loss and grief. But I'm going to let him introduce himself to you because I think this is a really great topic for us all. You know, when Don and I were talking the other day, I immediately went to loss as far as like losing a loved one. And he reminded me, no, we go through loss every single day on many different levels with many different issues. And that was a very, very poignant point. So with that, Don, could you please say hello?
Hello, everybody. And thanks for having me here today. If you could use just a little chat feature and let me know here who's an empath, just type 1 in the chat feature. All the empaths here. Yes, of course. I can see the smiles. I love it. I'm a deep empath. And I have an extensive bio that I can provide anybody with who's interested in that. But I'll give you a 30,000-foot view of who I am, how I got to where I'm at right now, and what really kind of attracted me to LifeWave. I'm 70 years old. I live in the nation's capital here in Canada, Ottawa, Ontario. And at the age of 7, I tried to kill my dad. And I did that because he had my mother up against the wall and he was beating her, he drunken stupor, both severe alcoholics. And he had no trouble really disarming me. He was a phys ed instructor in the military, so he just kind of grabbed me and pushed me aside, threw me into a corner, actually. And you can imagine every bit of worth that could live in a 7-year-old body just seeped from me. And I've spent the rest of my life seeking value and worth in serving others. And I lived my life in the underbelly of the world for most of it, well, up until the age of 35. And had loss come at me at warp speed. And it ranged from overdoses to murders to gang violence to suicides, and just wasn't equipped to deal with all of it. And like most of us, we're cruelly conditioned by the world to not feel bad, to disregard our emotional states. And the myths come at us in the forms of don't feel bad, replace the loss, grieve alone, just give it time, be strong for others, and keep busy. And in knowing that, I just began to realize after 37 years of drug and alcohol addiction recovery work, just how incomplete I was on so many fronts. So what I'm going to ask you all to do today is really kind of take off your thinking caps. And I love how Wendy introduced this. This is from the heart. And it's a space that I want us to try and connect to today and really kind of sit in, because there's a lot of discomfort there. When we experience grief, we typically attach that to the loss of a loved one. Yet we have the uncomfortable task of introducing people to intangible loss. And what I mean by that are losses like trust, safety, dignity, innocence, value, worth. And those are the things that plague us most. The reason we dodge all of these things is because we've been conditioned from a very young age. One of the first examples I use with people is, have you ever moved as a child? And just about everybody's experienced that. And I bring them back to that place and I ask them, so what was the response from your parents when you approach them to really kind of share some of the anxiety, some of the fear that you were experiencing back then. And the answers come back pretty much the same from everybody. Well, your dad's got a better job. We're moving into a nicer home. You'll make new friends. And so right away, they're telling us not to feel bad and to just move on. Often there'll be the accompaniment of, here, have a cookie, go to your room, watch TV, you'll feel better. So we get caught up in what we refer to as STIRBs, which is just an acronym for short-term energy releasing behaviors. And so they come to us in the form of alcohol use, drug use, sometimes sex, sometimes like the internet, just the endless scrolling, anything that will take our minds off of what we're truly experiencing. And it's because of the cruel conditioning. So once people are aware that there are all of these other loss events that raise the same amount of emotional turmoil, it begins to change the game for so many people. And if you look at what we've come through in the last 3 years, it's undeniable. The division that we're all dealing with right now, just by a show of hands, if you can, if you're willing to, or just an acknowledgement in the chat with the two, who here is experiencing separation from family members who don't maybe think quite the same as you do with any of the political issues that are rising right now in the US, with, you know, with the vax mandates and non-vax mandates, and like just the coin, the way it sits, and people choosing sides. How many people here are experiencing separation from close family members, from friends? You're dealing with incredible amounts of loss on that front. Yet you're conditioned to not deal with any of it. And I'm here to tell you that there's a process available for people to be able to walk through that discomfort. And that's what we do, because we take people back to their dawn of conscious memory so that they begin to really connect to the amount of loss. Because here's one of the things about loss: it's cumulative, and it's cumulatively negative. But we never go back and connect to the discomfort there, because we're anchored to pain around 6 little words, if you want to jot these down: different, better, more, hopes, dreams, and expectations. So when trauma-based events occur, there are things that we typically wish we could have had unfold differently, that things could have been better. There could have been more of a specific thing on that front, but we don't ever get to experience that because we don't get to go back to it. Wendy, are you looking to say something?
Yeah, could you repeat those again? Different, better, more?
Different, better, more, hopes, dreams, and expectations. If somebody wants to put that in the chat, it would be good. And here, I want to make a little ebook available to everybody, Wendy. I don't know how you distribute that. I don't know, you know, if people wanted to reach out to me. And please, what I'm looking to accomplish here is to just raise awareness around the degree of loss that the world has experienced right now. You know, all of us as individuals, but more importantly, collectively, and how what we've got in the way of an offer from a LifeWave perspective can tie into helping so many people on so many fronts when it comes to this. You know, so we begin to leverage the loss that people are experiencing in a healthy way, because they don't know how to work through it. And I doubt that anybody's ever gone into a doctor to seek help with a condition and ever been asked, what was your childhood like? No, they want to pinpoint what's wrong. They want to pull out a script. They want to medicate, and they want us to move along and come back if we need help with the side effect of what we're being medicated with. And we're seeing the world move in a different direction right now. People looking for wellness, and looking for wellness in healthy ways. So I do have an ebook that really explains the myths and how we're caught up in that. But I want to take it back to the list of intangible losses, because if we look at what the ugly world COVID is left for us to deal with, how many people have lost self-worth? How many people have lost their jobs? That becomes a tangible event all of a sudden. They can't provide for their families, and just the angst that surrounds that, and they don't know what to do with it. And so in the process that we walk people through, as I mentioned, we bring them back to dawn of conscious memory, so they begin to understand just how much loss they've been dealing with. It isn't the one specific event. The loss of a loved one is undeniable. That's something where the relationship is fractured, it ends, and it's normal and natural for us to feel just despondent, for us to feel like we don't have control, for us to feel like we don't feel. We're numb. And those are the escape routes that we'll often take to not have to deal with any of the pain, because we don't know what to do with it. And so when I look at what we've got here, just raising the mindfulness around the loss events that have taken place in our lives, the physical losses of people that we've loved, and the intangible losses that so many have experienced, we find ourselves in a position with the product offering we've got to be able to meet the requirements on three very important levels from my perspective: the physical, the emotional, and the financial. And the difference being, people don't really understand what it is we have for them, because, you know, we get excited about what we have and want to present it as an opportunity. And the way we move people through the grief process is simply by asking questions and allowing them to really divulge what they believe they're struggling with. And more often than not, it's very difficult for them to pinpoint that. It's very difficult for them to really get in touch with that. So we're looking at people who are lost on a number of fronts and really feel that they have nowhere to go. So we dub ourselves as hearts with ears, and we simply sit and we don't analyze, we don't criticize, and we don't judge. So we create that safe space, and we have a motto in the Institute that really encourages us to go first. So that courage for us to talk about the pain we're experiencing is what creates that safe space. And in doing so, it allows the person that we're talking to, the people that we're dealing with, to really plug into the significance of the situations they're dealing with. And we get to help them move through that. We can do it collectively. We do it on collaborative platforms like this, where people are called in to share their knowledge on specific topics. And, you know, there's no blame and no shame in any of this. It's because of the conditioning that we've been dealt by the world. And we've become extremely adept at dodging any of that emotional pain, any of that emotional pain. So it leaves us sitting in emptiness. You'll have to unmute yourself.
Sorry about that. I remember that. To me, the reason we dodge that pain is because we have never really been trained how to deal with it, how to process it, how to move through it. And is that true, Don?
That's very true. And because of the conditioning, because of the expertise we've developed in dodging it, we're encouraged by others. People will often share things with us. If we do approach anybody and begin to speak about fractured relationships or an anxiety that we're experiencing, we've been conditioned, one, to think that those emotions are not valued. They're not valuable to anybody. We don't want to burden anyone. We don't want to trip anybody else up. And our friends are always quick to share things that, although maybe intellectually accurate, are completely void of any emotional value whatsoever. And here's a great example that I'm sure most women can relate to. You break up with somebody that you've been involved with for a great amount of time and might want to turn to a close circle of friends and share the pain of that experience. And how are we greeted? How are you greeted? Oh, don't worry about that. There's plenty of fish in the sea. And we get these comments made to us that people mean well. We just don't get the wellness in their meaning. And so it leaves us frustrated, and we get to a place where we don't want to talk about it because we get the same pat answers all the time. It's the same thing as mom telling us, look, don't worry about that. We're moving to a nicer neighborhood. Here's a cookie, go watch TV. We leave, we don't get an opportunity to express the angst. We don't get an opportunity to express the pain. We feel different, so we equate that to, yeah, well, this is okay. But what we've really been taught is don't bring any of your emotional concerns to me.
Yeah, I feel, Dawn, it's not really the fault of the other, right? Because whenever we do try to, share our sadness or experience with the other, and the reason we get those clichéic, comebacks is because two things. One, they're feeling you. We're all connected, guys, but they're feeling you and your pain, and they don't like it because it's reminding them of their own pain, that which they have no idea how to process. And they've been taught, shut it down, be quiet, you're okay, just move on, distract yourself, you'll be okay. But secondly, because they don't really have the words, they don't have the knowledge, because they haven't processed themselves to truly help you. So that's why they kind of brush us aside. Do you find that's part about the same truth?
Well, what ends up happening, and we think about this, we're really conditioned during our early formative years, and we're conditioned by the people we trust and love the most, our parents. But as we begin to mature and we move through life and we begin to experience things on our own, the weight of uncomfortable hindsight sets in and allows us to realize just how ill-equipped our parents were to be handing off any form of truth to us. It's what causes most people to question as opposed to asking questions. And the difference there is, when we're asking questions, we seek clarity. When we're questioning, we're seeking to validate a formed belief. And that keeps us trapped. Mm-hmm. We don't want to move forward because there's work involved with that. I've sat and hosted initial conversations with people and heard just absolutely horrendous testimonials. And when I'm with people and I'm in conversation with them, I hear what they say, I listen for what they don't, but I always watch for the body reactions. I've specialized in one-on-one that allows me to really focus on that, because listening for what people don't say is what equips us with a much better layer of questions to ask to help unveil some of the pain that they're living with. And often in trauma-based events, we're looking for something to point a finger at by saying like, oh, this is what I experienced and that's why I'm like this. When in more often than not, it's an event that we should have experienced from a loving perspective or a caring perspective that we didn't experience. The trauma is based on that. And the trauma effects, according to Dr. Gabor Mate, who's I'm a big fan of, is trauma isn't what happens to us, it's what happens inside of us as a result of what happened to us.
That's very true. Yeah,
so
isn't it not all, every situation, every experience that we have is actually neutral. It's our judgment and how we're equipped to deal with it that creates it to be a negative trauma or a positive experience that which we build upon. Yes?
That's right. And sometimes what the expectation was, even if it isn't one that we can acknowledge, there's an expectation when we enter into any exchange. If we don't experience that, there's a trauma-based element in that leaves us wanting, that leaves us desiring, and it's been unmet. And so we look at that, and those are where the triggers lie, where we're anchored to pain. And if nobody's adept or skilled enough to walk you through that, to connect you to that, because I'll tell you, the first time you graph out your loss history, it's sobering when you begin to realize just how many loss events you've been handed and just are not equipped to be able to deal with. It's very sobering. And in that, we look at the relationships that were involved in each one of those loss events. And so there are positive elements to a relationship, but all of the loss events are negative. And how do we deal with that? How do we move through that? And that's where in the process, like I love the similarities between the institute I'm certified through and Lifeway, both like 20-year-old companies with incredible track histories of healing. And, you know, I came into this as a result of having lost my son. And it's why I kind of titled this, Loss Leads to Life. I never really got an opportunity to experience wellness the way I have in my later years, as I have since being part of this organization and actually applying this technology personally. And from an emotional perspective, the loss of my son is what got me to really begin to look at this and allowed me to process some of the harder things for me, even with the skill set I have in regards to walking people through these trauma-based events, was dealing with the fact that I believed my son would still be here with us had we known about this technology a year earlier. So the uncomfortable weight of hindsight that comes into play, and those are just some of the other tricky elements that begin to surface for us.
Yeah, very much. Well, I'm sorry for your loss, but I am grateful to the gift that which it has given you. So, you know, loss leads to life. You know, I love that. I wanted to change it, but I'm like, nope, there's a good purpose for why Dawn chose that. But we do shove down loss. You know, we deal with it the best we possibly can, or best we have been taught, or that we've been, you know, picked up books and or speaking to people like yourself, and we work through it. That because guys, anytime you experience anything that is a trauma, it's something, anything that you've never processed, you hold that vibration in your cells, and that those cells are consistently vibrating and broadcasting out. And you'll always be attracting similar vibration, just to show you need to work on this. So please share, Dawn, what you went through as far as how did that loss lead to living more? How did that lead to life more for you? What transitions and processes did you go through? And again, I don't really want to, yes, please address that, but I really don't want to focus on just loss of, you know, someone passing. You know, we have a loss of you hoping a child turns out a certain way and they just don't. They have a, you know, complete different path. Or that we really hope that this job would be the end all and it wasn't. Or the, you know, mate, you know, relationship was my soulmate and they weren't. So there's a lot of loss there. So please, yeah, let us know what you went through and how we can apply that elsewhere.
Well, there's a layer of complexity to the relationship with my son because I had him with my girlfriend back at the age of 17, and being full-blown alcoholic. I was full-blown alcoholic by the age of 11 and cross-addicted by the time I was 12 to drugs, and lived in that numb state until I couldn't any longer. And so the turmoil around my son was having given him up for adoption. And 13 years ago, he found me on Facebook. And so we began a relationship. And instantly, his mother and I got to reconnect. So I got to make amends on that front. And I got to deal with some of that pain and some of the deep-rooted just hurt that was involved in that, and got to apologize to her for the activity and the strife I was caught up in at the time. And then it moved from there to her going out to visit him And she had shared with me what she wanted to deal with. She wasn't really in agreement with the lifestyle he was living. And I said, well, just a word of caution here, and hear what I'm saying, and maybe not what you're understanding. Probe for clarity if you need to. But we gave up all rights to parent this child when we gave him up for adoption. So go out, begin to develop a relationship where you are right now, and be happy with that we're getting this opportunity. And she went out and voiced her opinions, and it didn't lead to a good place because he squished that. And so it made it very difficult for me, because I'd offer to come and visit, and he was, Pops, like, I'm just not ready for it. And you know, I was working with him through things that he'd been forced to deal with, and just the things that surfaced for me as a result of that. He, you know, in the adoptive family, he didn't have a really good upbringing. Like he didn't have a good time. So there was all of the emotions surrounding that I had to process and work through, and everything else. But there came a point, the April or May, just prior to his death, he died on July 28th of 2021. I said, Vince, once he was living in Texas, he grew up in the US. And I said, Vince, once all of this COVID nonsense is cleared up, are you up for a visit? And he said, yes, Pops, I am. Like, I'm ready for that. And he died that July before I could get out to visit with him. So there was that for me to process. There was that for me to work through. And when I talk about loss leading to life, it was my willingness to sit in the suck, my willingness to deal with that deep pain and process it to the best of my ability, to deal with all of it, to accept it, because life comes at us in 3 stages: awareness, acknowledgement, and acceptance. And it's the perfect example of the distance between acknowledgement and acceptance would be when I acknowledged that I had a drinking problem, but it was 3 long years before I accepted it. And I lived managing everybody and isolating through anger. Kept everyone on their toes, kept them all just tiptoeing around me. Don't talk to Dad, like, don't be this, like, oh, he's in a mood, oh, he's got this. And not that I was just so uncomfortable because I wasn't getting an opportunity to numb, and I was doing it out of what program refers to as white knuckling. But still, push away the people that we love the most because we have the deepest trust in them to continue to love us through all of our turmoil. How unfair is that? Yet we do it without realizing exactly what's happening. So there can be a long distance between acknowledgement and acceptance. And that's the journey that we all get to take from our heads to our hearts. 13 inches in the average human body, but the longest distance any of us will ever have to travel if we choose to.
Most definitely. I'd like to back up a little bit, Dawn. So, you know, you were mentioning that we shut people out, and I know that when I get really stressed, or, it's something just really, I'm completely engulfed with that feeling. I will completely isolate myself from my family members. I just completely just go within, and they might say something to me, and I sometimes don't even hear it, like, hey, I'm like, oh yeah, sorry. And, they know I'm introvert, is one would say, you're processing internally, but that's not necessarily healthy for the environment of your family, for the environment of your relationships. So how would you suggest one try to soften that and trust their, family members or their loved ones with what they're moving through?
Well, it comes down to making that difficult emotional choice to work through the trauma that's conditioned us to act and behave the way we typically do, because it's the only tool set we have. We don't know how to enter into honest conversation around emotions because it's so uncomfortable. And we've heard so many pat answers from so many people. It's why so many of us like are so uncomfortable going to funeral parlors. The main excuse people use is, well, I don't know what to say. And the odd thing is, we don't ever have to say anything. Our presence simply speaks the message that needs to be spoken, just in showing up and being with them, just to let them know they're not alone in a physical sense. So for family members, for us to invite them into that turmoil, we're shamed. And we don't want them taking part in that. We think we've got to figure it out on our own. And it's difficult because we just don't have the tools to do it. We haven't been equipped with the tools to do it. And in the process, the way it lays everything out, when somebody gets to look at their loss history graph, and then we choose a relationship on one of the deepest loss events that they've experienced, and then we work through that, we then begin to introduce the recovery-based components that come in the form of forgiveness and apologies and significant emotional statements.
Mm-hmm.
And so as you work through that, then you get to complete. You get to complete the things that harass you, the things that have you trapped, the things that have you anchored to pain around different, better, more. See, the different, better, more are typically events that have taken place in the past, and the hopes, dreams, and expectations are the aspirations we had for the relationship moving forward, the future things that we believe we're never going to experience again.
Yeah.
And so it shuts us down, and we sit and suffer in silence.
So this is all, I'm really, really grateful because this is all bringing up to the, to the surface for everyone to see and everyone to hear and acknowledge. However, everybody, for the most part, I know there's a lot of us who are healers and help people with this, yes. But for the most part, the general, lay person, the family members or the friends that surround them do not have the tools and the ability for them to go, okay, I'm going to open up and I'm going to trust and I'm just going to put it out there. So I would say, yes, there's a two-part scenario there of yes, open up and correct me if I'm wrong. It's good to open up and to share with the friends that you currently have, but not with the expectations that they're going to be able to help give you the right answers. But just opening up is a good first step, would you say?
Yes, but I would suggest that people find somebody skilled or somebody who's adept that may be walking them through that emotional turmoil, because our loved ones are as conditioned as we are. They know us better than sometimes we know ourselves. And what do they want to do? They want to placate. They want to just put everything back in the box, because as you mentioned earlier, the minute we become emotionally honest, it's a reminder to the people that are around us that they suffer in the same way. We even have an expression for it. Ignorance is bliss. And think about that. And, then some smarty pants like me comes along and raises an awareness around it. And now ignorance is no longer the blissful place we believed it to be, because the awareness ties into our competency level. And now we are consciously incompetent. And that is not a comfortable place to be. Yet we wrestle with it. We don't know how to move forward. We don't know where to take it. We don't know what to do from there. So it's finding somebody that has the skill to be able to walk you through that process, that you can trust enough, that you feel safe enough with, to talk about some of the deep rooted things that you've experienced and have never shared with anybody. Our family members are going to want us to put that stuff back in the box, because there'll typically be an element where they may feel responsible for some of it and don't know how to deal with that, or get so uncomfortable because of their own turmoil, their own emotional pain, don't want the reminder that somebody is being courageous enough to look deeper and want to be free from those things. Because it's on the flip side of that where we get to leverage the loss we've experienced throughout our lives and move forward into life and life abundantly.
Mm. Thank you. Yeah, I want
Oui,
to.
Marie-France. Somebody's got their hand up.
Yes, I think sometimes it's because we need to share to make it aware that we're not alone. And sometimes when something happened to us, we blocked it, we've forgotten it because it was easier at that time to block it out of our mind. I mean, we were young, and so by awareness and sharing others, and then realize you're not alone. Other people have gone through their own pains, and then you feel, oh, well, it's not just me. There's other, you acknowledge that you're not alone, and it helps to just share with others. Sometimes it doesn't have to be professionals. It just be people that just say, oh, yes, that has happened to me as well. And just knowing that you're not alone can help. Yeah.
Yes, it can help in a revelatory sense, but it doesn't help in a processing sense, because very few people are equipped with a process to walk people through so that they can complete emotionally. And those are the things that keep us trapped. It's because we're not complete. We never got an opportunity. When you've lost people or you've experienced a trauma, how many times in your heart or your mind have you uttered, if only I had said this, or I wish I could have said that, if only I had made a different decision and been there during that period. I was so close. And you see where we get trapped, where we get anchored, and we need people who can help us look past the event to the little hooks. I liken us to, is everybody familiar with Gulliver's Travels? That's what we're like as people. Here was this giant washed up onto the shore of Lilliput, and all of these little people looking at him, freaking out, saying, oh my, like when this guy comes through, he's going to ruin our country. He's going to just wreak havoc. We need to do something. So they threw these tiny little ropes with anchors around him. They wove it into his hair, and they anchored the anchors. They sunk them into the beaches. And for me, it's the perfect analogy of what we're like from a loss perspective, because we've been experiencing loss since early childhood. We just don't recognize it because it's never been presented to us this way. So here was this giant, quite capable of breaking any one of those little strands, but there were so many on him and woven into his hair that it was impossible for him to move forward. Such is it with us, because those hooks are in the very soft spots of our souls, our person. And the worst part about it all is that they're barbed, and we need to wiggle them to get them out. And that's the difficult emotional work, because we experience it. We're willingly going back and allowing the depth of pain and hurt that we experienced when the event occurred in order to move from it. So we go to a place of incredible loss, do the difficult emotional work so that we can step into the light and live in freedom, truly live.
And Dawn, I would presume that what you mean by going into that moment of loss, that deep that we feel within ourselves, is just allowing ourselves to feel it, allowing ourselves to express it, allowing ourselves to think and feel. I remember when I moved through this when I was younger, I was shown, go in front of the mirror and act like you're talking to the person, just get it out. And that's just trying to soften that area, like you said, wiggling it around from those barbs, just trying to make it so it's easier, so it's lighter and it's not as heavy as before.
Absolutely. You see, it's the willingness to do that. But Let's look at the conditioning again. Don't feel bad, replace the loss, grieve alone, just give it time, be strong for others, keep busy. How many times have you read on a social media post when somebody makes a decision to bare their soul and talk about something very difficult or something painful they've experienced, and read in the comments, you got this, be strong.
Yeah.
What a trap. What a horrible thing to put in front of somebody and tell them, like, no, you got this. Never mind the pain you're feeling around this. You're strong. You can get it through that.
Well,
Where the true pathway.
I understand why they say that, because they're like, I want to say something to say that I'm here and I support you. So I'm just going to throw these cliches out.
Well, let's all do our best to change the word strong to courage.
I love it.
It changes the dynamics of everything, because now it's the courage to actually experience the feelings that come up when we think about those things, when we remember those things. You know, again, the ignorance is bliss part is when we're unaware of things, we cruise through life and it's rosy and everything is good until an event occurs and it tags us and it brings us back to our experience with it. And the deep-rooted skill set to dodge that pain takes over. And we either begin to numb if we still haven't made it to a pathway of recovery from substance abuse, or haven't gotten any kind of help on a professional level.
Yeah. So I want to kind of recap and then go forward, which is, speaking out to, let's say, family members, as everybody probably has done in their past, saying, I'm just, reliving this moment, mom. And then mom blows up at you, or your children. In fact, I've experienced this as well. And, it's just that they immediately take it that your words are telling them what they did wrong. And so they get defensive first. So watch how you share your words. I feel this and I perceived it was that, and my experience was this. So therefore, and you did that, and that made me feel that's going to make anybody defensive. Keep it to the I language, but then turn around. I love how you're turning around, which is where, love how we work together. Turning around is to how you yourself, everybody, can be a better, this is a plague. This is a program plague that's been in our society for decades, generations.
Forever.
Yeah. And the thing is we need to change it. We need to make it different. So not only is allowing your barbs to soften and work on the I language, but also, Dawn, how we can be a better person for those people who may come to us for sharing their pain and their loss. I've always been taught you have nothing to say. You don't know what to say. Like you just said, showing up at the funeral, you just create space. You just hold them in a safe space. If you have nothing to say, you just hold them. I'm here. Allow yourself to cry. No judgment. I'm hearing your words. Yeah, that hurts. Love you. What would you say, some good advice to people to again, we're all trying to change this and make this world a better world. How can we be better to be that person for someone else who's in that space of softening and trying to share their pain?
Don't try and fix people. Tuck this nugget into your hearts, that you have the sensitivity to hear when somebody's sharing something painful with you, how deep-rooted it is. Commit that you will not analyze, criticize, or judge. Be that safe space. Be that heart with ears. Because here's one of the things I love sharing with people, and it catches just about everybody off guard. As we move through this process, if you connect to something that's so emotionally distressing for you that you begin to clamor, you begin to sweat, you begin to cry, please do not try and regain composure, because that's conditioning for you to show up okay in the marketplace, for you to show up okay in a place where you're looking to bear your pain so someone can just sit as a witness to it. I don't care if there's snot running down your nose, if there's tears running down your face. Blurt it out in guttural sounds if you need to. It isn't important that I hear any of the words that you are trying to speak. It's more important that you allow that pain to surface freely and exit your body so that you're not dealing with the weight of that.
Thank you, Don. That was beautiful. And that's true. So we're here at the top of the hour. Is there anything you'd like to share before we open up to questions?
If you ever feel a need to seek forgiveness in a relationship for something that you've done, dig a little deeper and apologize and leave it at that. Because if you apologize to somebody and in the same breath ask them to forgive you, you're asking them to do your difficult emotional work. You're minimizing your offense and putting the onus on them to have to forgive you. Don't ever do that. Dig a layer deeper, figure out what it is you did to cause the offense, apologize for that and leave it there. Whether they forgive you or not is none of your business.
I love that. And isn't also a little element of that is forgiving yourself?
Absolutely. Absolutely. It one of the things I love most, and this isn't a program secret, I share this with everybody. We get an opportunity to live in 24-hour segments. Embrace the magic found in that. You'll never be far behind in any race, because every day we get up and we get to make a decision that today is going to be a good day. Learn to never set an expectation, because if you don't achieve that result, you will end up disappointed. Instead, get up expecting, and that way you get to celebrate everything that shows up.
The way you project yourself means everything. I'm sure you know this one of a psychologist went into a psych ward and he observed everyone who was in depression. And then he mimicked the same body language, how they ate, how they spoke, not holding eye contact, eyes down. And he found himself going into that of depression within, a certain amount of time. So your expectation and how you hold your body means a lot, doesn't energetically, just because you're telling your body how you want to be. Yes.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
And just through vibrational power, because we all vibrate, if we're not vibrating at high levels, that's sending a message of its own.
Mm-hmm. Most definitely. Before we open to questions, Dawn, how would you like people to reach out to you if they would like to learn more?
I can put the link to my bio so people can get a deeper background in the chat if you want me to do that. I don't know if you put this into the notes that come with the recording of this, if you even hand these out as recordings. I don't know. I've been invited into this and I'm extremely humbled and just very, very honored that you would want to do this, Wendy. Like I really am, because I think it's work and it's just an awareness that most people are trapped in. They don't know, and I hate people living in pain when they don't have to.
Absolutely. Yeah, I feel that we've all gone through as a collective loss, for these past 3 years. And unfortunately, I feel we're not over. It's going to continue. Certain things are going to break down. Our world is going to change drastically in the next, 10 years. And I think it's a really good idea to get on top of how you, how I, how everyone is not only processing what's coming our way, but processing our own experience and helping others process theirs as well. So I think this is very important. And I think we definitely need to have you back as well.
Well, what I love about this is, and especially the LifeWave movement, it's such a collaborative platform. We champion healing, we champion wellness, and I look at the division that the world is dealing with right now, and let's tie it back into the realistic explanation of what's taking place. From an emotional perspective, we're Paleolithic in our skill set for dealing with them. We're just not evolved on that front, and for a multitude of reasons. The bodies that we have elected to protect and govern us are medieval in their skill sets and fall short of our expectations constantly. Yet our ability to disseminate information is godlike. And the repercussions that we're experiencing, we're not equipped to deal with, because the information gets out to 4 billion people at the same time now. And just the confusion that rises, and people out, the algorithms have been extremely cruel because they begin to validate what you search for. And the great Napoleon Hill, there's a quote in his book that changed the course of my life. And here's the quote: "We find what we look for." And so the algorithms have been extremely adept at putting new persona in front of you, new proof in front of you to validate your beliefs based on what you've been searching for. And so the division and the gap grows wider and wider. During the very first COVID lockdown, I made a commitment to become a pathway to reconciliation and hope for people in a world that was being torn apart at such a rapid rate, we couldn't deal with any of it. And I'll tell you, it's been a lonely journey living on the edge of that coin. Not that I don't have opinions, and not that I don't have beliefs. They are not important when it comes to people hurting the way they are right now. And there are no winners in any of these wars. There are people hurting on both sides. And if I choose to voice an opinion on one, guess what? I've lost the ability to help people on the flip side of that coin, because I stand in a place being non-judgmental, non-analytical, and non-critical.
Beautiful. Mic drop.
Just like it's 70 years of hurt, 70 years of pain.
Dawn, so people are asking about your ebook.
Yes.
Where can they find that?
Again, can I provide you with a
Please,
link
yes.
to
Yeah,
that?
so just let you know, this is recorded. It will be uploaded in Telegram on the Evolve team, and also in the personal development and training groups. And regardless if the chat shows up or not, we do have closed captions that are on there, so that will show up within the closed caption as well.
Okay, so I'll make sure I'll get you the information on my bio, the link to my bio. If anybody's in a rush to go and check that out, D.V. Lachance, Donald Vern, so V is in Vern, Victory, Lachance, LACHANCE.com. dvlachance.com.
Thank you, Velvet.
That's it. Thank you. My
That's like-
bio is there.
Okay, and
And
they
feel free. Feel
They-
free. Anybody you know who is suffering, just wants an ear to listen to, refer them.
and you can find your ebook on there as well.
No, I'll send you a link for the ebook.
Okay.
It's,
Alright,
it's
so-
convoluted to get to because there's a number of ebooks. Because
Gotcha.
loss hits us on a whole bunch of different fronts, right? Pet loss is another like incredible area where people are so cruel when it comes to acknowledging the loss of a pet.
Yeah, actually, someone actually shared that within the chat. That was one of the extreme heart moments in losing their pet.
And when you stop and think about it, there is no other love that is pure or more unconditional than the love that our pets have for us. And so we experience that in a real way. And when that pet passes on, like the references for people to try and allow us to feel good or make us feel good. Oh, your dog has crossed Rainbow Bridge. They won't acknowledge the depth of the pain that the person's experienced. They just want to talk about the dog is now running whole on Rainbow Bridge with all your other dogs, and right, just diminishing the pain element and stepping out of that discomfort as quickly as possible.
And so,
I hope people have found value in what we got to share here today. I really do.
so one last recap, Dawn, as far as what people can do, like an active step, what they can do with the pain that which they're holding in their body, or the thoughts, the experience, the expectations, etc. What's one or two or three steps, whatever you like, to share active steps at which they can do to recap?
Step into the courage required to acknowledge the severity of the pain, the depth of that pain, and the complete inability to deal with it, because we just have not developed the skills to do it. And it's by sitting in that, in acknowledging that. Here, I guess the best way for me to say it would be to surrender to the pain. Because the minute we surrender, the war ends. But we're skilled at wanting to go to war, to be strong for others. We keep busy so we don't have to deal with it. So it is that surrender to the discomfort that you're experiencing and sit with it, because that will allow it to pass.
I love that. Thank you. If anybody has any questions, feel free to raise your hand and we'll call on you one at a time. Something you said there. I love the surrendering. I remember learning that moment of, if you feel a very strong emotion, usually we try, like, we've been trained, oh, look at those pretty flowers, distraction. And instead, if you just sit with that emotion will shift and change within 45 seconds. Then, and there was another one that another cliche that kind of comes into that same thing, which is a happiness butterfly comes and, lands on your shoulders. And we look and we go, oh, look, it's a happiness. Oh, I just love happiness. And happiness goes, oh, you've seen me. Okay, I can leave now. And then that of depression or pain or anger lands on the other shoulder. And we're like, oh, I'm not going to look. No, I'm not going to feel that. No, because that's a taboo feeling. I can't feel that. And that butterfly goes, well, I guess I'm going to have to sit here until you finally acknowledge me. And I love that. You're basically saying, acknowledge those feelings, sit with them so they can lift and change.
See, and it's the process that we all experience. There's the awareness that all of a sudden they're there, the acknowledgement that they're there, and then the acceptance that they're there.
Mm-hmm.
And we get a little quicker at moving from acknowledging to acceptance, but through the power of surrendering.
I love that. So no questions. You are extremely thorough.
There'll be questions. There always are.
So anybody
People
like,
don't always want to ask them publicly.
May I make a comment, please?
yes, please, Barb, go for it.
Thank you. So 5.5 years ago, my closest sister was murdered by a serial killer. And exactly 5 years, pretty much to the date, he was given another life sentence. Believe it or not, he had already served a life sentence, okay? And 3 months into all the pain and the trauma and the grief of that, God, in his miraculous way, as only he can do, led me to forgive him and set myself free, and ask every family member to do so. And most of them said yes. The power of forgiveness is indescribable. There are just no words to do that. But to have to walk through it again, relive it again, 5 years later, this stuff you could find on the internet. That's how it is. Court records are public, huh? Mm-hmm. To read about some person who is a family member, your sister, you came from the same mother's womb, as if it's like an inanimate object online. And there were people cruel. People are not cruel about pets. People are cruel about human beings, as though they are not people, persons, entities created in God's image. as though you caused something, as though you are responsible, or as though you could have avoided it some shape, form, or fashion. But I guess I say all that to say that, and I was able to tell a couple of persons since then, people really cannot, they truly cannot enter into your pain. They might want to, and all the cliches they think will help, but they can't go to your place of pain. And then there are others who are just plain old cruel in the midst of something like that. That's my comment. And thank you. Thank you, Don.
Thank you. Thank you for your comment. And just some clarity around forgiveness. Forgiveness is a gift that we can only give self.
Yes. Yes.
The true
Yes.
definition of forgiveness is giving up on the hope that you could have had a different past.
Mhm. Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that.
Thank you.
And
Bless
see,
you.
as a loss specialist, I want to delve into the incredibly broken past of somebody who has the ability to perpetrate such horrendous acts.
Hmm.
Where are
Hmm.
they stuck? What kind of conditioning have they come through? What kind of love have they experienced?
Mhm.
Not easy work, because we're called to level the playing field.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Barb, for sharing and being vulnerable. Truly appreciate you sharing your story.
Thank you, Wendy. Bless you.
Bless you. I see, all I see is iPhone. I don't know your name, but go ahead and unmute yourself, love.
It's Norma.
Oh, hi, Norma.
Yes, I like the way he said surrender. And of course, the forgiveness is more for ourselves than for them, so that we can set free from whatever harm was done to us. I was sexually abused by my father at the age of 12 and went on for years. It's taken me so many years of counseling and group counseling, and I've tried everything until one day I just said, I give up. I'm tired. I don't want to carry this anymore. And I just totally gave it up. So when he said surrender, that just brought it a full circle for me. So thank you, Don.
You're welcome. You're welcome. You're so welcome. I love those stories. I hate the pain that caused them, but I love those stories.
Yeah. Yeah, it's hard, but at some point you just get tired of fighting that battle by yourself when you're told, it happened so long ago, just get over it. You're not done with counseling yet. How much longer are you going to go through that? You just want to punch them, but all you can do is walk away and just forget what they say and acknowledge what you're feeling.
Absolutely. You see, it's where the freedom is found. We stop fighting those battles on behalf of other people to want
Yeah.
to be right.
Yes,
It amounts to
exactly.
nothing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I know my family has a lot of unresolved issues, but I'm the only one that's been able to face counseling with all this crap. And I always tell them, you know what? I'm the one that's been the bravest because I have dealt with this face to face. I said, you guys, y'all are still stuck in the mess. I'm not.
See, and because of that incredible gift, you get to love them through the turmoil that they're still trapped in.
Yeah. Yeah.
Kudos
I
to
love this.
you.
I love this session. Thank you so much. You've been wonderful.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, love, for sharing your story.
Thank you, Wendy.
You're welcome. Anyone else would like to unmute themselves and share with Dawn or ask a question? All right. I think we can close.
And here,
Yeah.
just for the record, because I learned very early on in my career that many people are uncomfortable asking questions or talking about things that are emotionally distressing in any kind of group format. So I'll put a link to my Facebook profile, and you can reach out to me or through my profile, my bio profile, because it's housed on the institute, within the institute, and you can reach out to me there, and we can have a private conversation. Because initially, I'd meet with people for initial consults in coffee shops and things like that. Not, because we don't know the people who are reaching out for help, and just want to gauge for safety reasons and security. And I typically apologize to people who first meet me that they may find me intrusive, but I guarantee them in the same breath that I will never be invasive. And there's a huge difference there. And because I listen for things that are not said, it prepares me with a deeper level of questions. I have so many people who would break down emotionally, and just experiencing the stress for them trying to keep it together in a public place, so nobody else would realize what was going on, yet watching that pain surface in such an undeniable way. So my counsel, my suggestion is, if you have anything that you want to table or anything that you feel in need to share, reach out to me through my Facebook profile. I'll put that in the chat right now if you want to copy it.
I will
just
also,
look.
sorry, I will also, everybody, I will get all Don's information, and on the replay, I'll make sure his website's there, Facebook, is there, link to his ebook is there, so you'll be able to collect it from there as well.
You're a gem, Wendy. I'm so thankful our paths have crossed.
Me too. You're you're a mentor to me in the way you're so eloquent and so well with your words. And I am so appreciative, because it's just beautiful. It feels like a nice warm blanket has been wrapped around all of us, and definitely from the heart. So thank you so much, Don, for sharing your wisdom and guiding us all today through this. And I know I'll have you back, because I know we're going to go through, there's going to be much more loss in the world of things that we, institutions that we depend upon that are going to be falling apart. And so I think it's a really good idea, like I said before, to get on top of that. So I'd love to have you back, maybe in about 3 or 4 months, so we can continue this conversation and giving some, tangible steps to how do one fortify themselves to help them move through this upcoming loss that we're probably going to experience.
Thank you. That'd be great.
Yeah.
And if you're open to it, it's simply a shift in mindset, heart set, more importantly, and language that we're equipped with to make a difference in other people's lives as we move through with what we have in the way of offering from LifeWave.
Yes.
Because I think it's very, very powerful once we come from that place of, because the one thing I've come to realize is that I don't have an opportunity for anybody, but I do have an option for everybody. It's a simple shift, yet it takes it right out of my court and puts it in theirs, because the option is for them. If they take it on, they create the opportunity. If I'm presenting an opportunity, that's about me, and it's usually falling on deaf ears.
Yeah, and then actually you have to carry it as well. And that means you're carrying the responsibility, which is not for you to carry.
Because if we realize that we are in an industry rife with loss, it begins to change the game.
It does. It changes.
Because
yeah,
absolutely, we can begin winning by helping others win. And I'll leave you with this, because it's kind of a peek, and I want people to think about this. Don't develop a skill set around closing. Our industry teaches that. Think about what that means. We're here to create openings for everybody. We don't want to close. Let's change that language.
I'm just trying to I was like, so closing again is coming from that. I have an opportunity for you.
Absolutely.
And the other thing you said, so not opportunities, but you said, but I have a option, right?
Yeah, I have an option for people.
You have an
If they
option.
decide to take this on, they're the ones that create the opportunity, and we'll support them through that. But in understanding that I'm here to create just space for people to experience the option, I'm not coming at them with all the great things I believe excites them or me about what this is all about. No, I'm probing to find out where they are on a loss front. What are you struggling with right now? What is it that you may be seeking that you have yet to find? And create the space for them to begin to share that, because that's what will equip us with just much better positioning for them, because we know what we've got. And until they are comfortable enough to divulge what the challenge is, and you know, I love so many things that are unfolding on this front. Like I really do, because just a little bit of research in regards to the boomer era, 3 things that they're very, very concerned about. They're concerned about their physical health, they're concerned about their emotional health, and they're concerned about their financial health. Yet more shame and anxiety and things surround them on the financial front. They are absolutely paralyzed and don't know how to talk about it because of the shame element. The shame element spills over into our emotional realm. Our emotional realm keeps us trapped in angst, shame, pain, that in turn affects our immune systems. And here we sit, if we're willing to create that space and allow the people that we're looking to help share their stories and where they're caught up, we have an option for them to check out and plug into that will end the insanity of that infinity cycle, where the emotions affect the immune system affects our health actually affects us emotionally. What does that do? Robs us of the ability to create financial solidness, so and work on that. How many people lost their jobs during what's unfolded in the last bit? Sit suffering in silence because there's so much shame based around that. They don't know who to turn to, they don't know what to do. And not because any of these people are stupid, it's because of how the world has unfolded for them and how trapped they've been in so many areas. Let's free them up.
I think you just outlined our next chat, which is pain and shame around financial abundance or loss thereof. That I think is our next chat to be, because that's a very big one. Finance and abundance, and I'm worthy of abundance. I'm, worthy of attracting people who want abundance as well. That's a big, huge nugget. Actually, that's not nugget. That is a rat's nest. And I would love for us to continue that conversation, because that's a necessary one. There's so many people who are just stuck right there, right? They're not going to attract people who are in abundance because I'm not worthy, I'm shameful, et cetera, et cetera. You know all the words. I would love that. And I'm sure everybody would too.
You got it.
All right, we got our next one. I love it. So guys, we'll have Dawn back in about 2 months.
I'm so thankful. I'm just so thankful.
Thank you so much, Dawn.
You're welcome.
I think we all are going to walk away with a smile on our face because of the love that you shared with us today. Thank you again.
I hope so.
Yes,
He's
yes.
blessed us today. Thank you for blessing us.
You're welcome. You're so welcome. Because it blesses me in return, right?
Yes. All right. Well, we're going to put this to a close, everybody. Thank you very much for joining us. Thank you, Dawn, very much for joining us from Canada. And yes, we're going to have Dawn back in a couple months. We'll see what works for our schedules and let you know what that's going to look like. Other than that, please enjoy your wonderful day. Later on, we do have Dr. Stacy doing a Q&A and of course our patching podcast at 6 o'clock Pacific time. So sure to jump on either one of those if you have the time. Many blessings to you all. God
Thank
bless.
you, Wendy.
Bye, Wendy. Thanks.
Thanks, Wendy, for hosting this.
Absolutely, and thank you.
You're welcome.